Hear the footsteps echo in a deserted street. Listen as a distant, haunting melody drifts through the night, sending chills down your spine. Why do urban legends scare us so much? And how does the right music make our hearts race even faster? From ghostly hitchhikers to shadowy figures at midnight, music doesn't just set the mood. It pulls us right into these chilling stories. What really happens when the soundtrack turns sinister? Get ready to find out. On a damp, silent night, somewhere deep in the maze of old cobblestone streets, the glow of lanterns barely holds back the darkness. Picture this. It's just past midnight, and mist rolls across the empty village square. Only the sound of your own footsteps keeps you company, until something odd breaks the silence. A violin's notes float in the cold air. A single, long, eerie note vibrates, echoing off the stone walls. It's off-key, but you can't tell if that's just the wind or the player's trembling hand. Villagers peek from behind their curtains, eyes wide, hearts thumping. That's how the legend of the haunted melody begins. It's been told for generations in this village, passed down from grandparents to wide-eyed children. They say a lone violinist, wrapped in a faded cloak, wandered the town each year on this very night. No one ever saw his face. Some say his eyes glowed like hot coals. Others insist he had no face at all, just darkness under his hood. But everyone remembers the music. The story goes that, one fateful year, the villagers gathered in the square, drawn by rumors of that strange music. It was foggy, the lantern lights flickering, faces anxious. As the violinist took his place at the edge of the platform, silence hung heavy. He raised his instrument, bow trembling. Some folks held hands, others covered their ears. Then, with a slow scrape of bow on string, the melody began. It didn't sound beautiful, not even close. The tune was sharp, sour, like fingernails dragging on a chalkboard mixed with a lullaby sung backwards. Somewhere, a dog howled. An old man mumbled a prayer. Each note felt wrong, twisting familiar nursery rhymes into something sinister. But it was hypnotic. No one could look away. With every crescendo, the music grew wilder. The air felt thick, almost like the violin was pulling all the warmth out of the crowd. Some folks remember the bells in the church tower suddenly ringing, even though the clock hands still pointed to midnight. A woman fainted. A boy began to sob. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the melody stopped. The violinist had vanished. For days, the villagers whispered about what they'd heard. Some swore their dreams were filled with that twisted tune. Others said the crops failed that year and blamed the music for it. But the one thing everyone agreed on? After that night, nobody wanted to walk the square alone after dark. But the details don't end there. In the weeks following, strange things kept happening. One evening, a teenager named Alia, who didn't believe in ghosts, decided to sneak into the square with some friends. She joked, "Maybe I'll play a tune and see if the ghost violinist comes out to jam." They giggled, poking fun at the old legend. Alia borrowed her brother's old violin and played 3 wobbly notes. The moment the sound echoed out, the lanterns flickered and the mist thickened around them, as if swallowing the group. Another friend, Tom, remembers, "I felt that music in my bones. It was like something was behind me, breathing on my neck." Heart pounding, they ran home, never willing to joke about the legend again. Alia's mother later found the violin abandoned at the edge of the square, strings fraying as if plucked by invisible fingers all night long. Even the local shopkeeper has a story. Mr. Barnes would recall, "Every year when the anniversary comes, I hear soft music drifting beneath my shop's door. It doesn't sound like anything else in town, just a single violin, squeaking out a tune that makes my cat hiss and hide behind the tins of beans. I don't even bother closing up early now. I leave before dark." This fear, this deep unease, settled into the bones of the town. No matter how much time passed, every villager had a story to tell. A door that wouldn't close, a sudden cold draft, a shadowy figure glimpsed at the corner of an eye, all linked to the music. Music changes everything, especially when it crawls under your skin like the haunted melody. Think about watching a horror movie without sound. It feels flat, almost silly. But the moment the music swells, your imagination runs wild. That's what happened here. The violinist's discordant notes set everyone on edge. Crescendos made hearts race. Sharp, shrill tones raised goosebumps and made even grown men clutch their chests. It's the difference between hearing a story and living inside it. Let's dig deeper. That strange violin tune wasn't just weird for the sake of being weird. In music, a crescendo means the sound gets louder and more intense. Here, every time the melody swelled, fear in the audience grew with it. Picture an overhead shot. The camera hovers over the trembling crowd, lantern lights flicker, faces twist in dread as the sound creeps higher. Then, cut to close-up, sweat beads on a boy's forehead. A woman presses a rosary to her lips, eyes darting. It's not just the notes, it's the reaction the notes pull out of us. Discordant music is music that doesn't fit together. Notes clash and rub wrong, making us feel uncomfortable. In the haunted melody, every off-key note twisted something inside listeners. It's like when you hear an unexpected bang in an old house. The jolt sticks and doesn't let go. The music, in a way, acts as its own character in the legend. But what about the aftermath? The story didn't end with the last note. For weeks after, the town changed. Kids stopped playing in the square, and even the bravest grown-ups hurried through it after dark. Some families hung sprigs of rosemary and garlic on their doors, supposedly to ward off evil, but really, to chase away whatever feeling the music left behind. The legend even began to shape popular culture nearby. During annual fall festivals, local bakers would secretly leave violin-shaped bread at the edges of the square as an offering. Some said it was a peace gesture to the mysterious musician. A painter named Lizette would only use bright colors for murals near her shop, refusing to use deep blues or grays, just in case color keeps the music away, she'd say. These small rituals and superstitions became woven into daily life, a way to cope with the lasting dread the haunted melody inspired. Over time, the legend became part of local tradition. Every year, old-timers warned the kids about wandering at night. Musicians avoid strange keys and odd tunes. At festivals, the town band opens with cheerful marches, never sad songs, for fear they'll summon something. Even now, new generations feel uneasy when a violin's notes drift through the dark. The haunted melody's power lingers on, all because of how its music wormed its way into people's memories. So what can you, as a storyteller, take from this? Music isn't just background noise. It's a tool to create real tension. If you're telling a creepy story, try this trick. Use simple, creepy sounds to slowly build tension. Start with a soft, unfamiliar tune. Add a sudden, sharp note to make the listener jump. Let the music trail off unexpectedly, leaving an awkward silence. The emptiness can be scarier than the music itself. You can even make your own scary music at home. Find random objects like a glass, a key, or even an old shoebox and record their sounds. Layer them on top of a plain melody. Distort them, speed them up, or slow them down. You'll notice that the more out of place these sounds feel, the weirder and scarier your story can get. If you want to add to the tension, record footsteps echoing in a hallway, or the wind rattling the window. Even a whispered phrase, especially played backwards, can make listeners' skin crawl. And that's the biggest lesson from the haunted melody. Never underestimate the power of sound. It can turn an ordinary night into a ghost story you'll never forget. But that wasn't even the strangest part. The next legend dives even deeper into our fears, with music that doesn't just haunt, it possesses. Now travel with me just beyond that misty village, deep into a pine forest where the ground always feels soggy, and the air smells of damp earth and old leaves. The trees are so tightly packed, you barely see the sky, and even during the day, sunlight struggles to break through the tangled branches. At night, the woods turn into a maze of shadows and odd whispers. The story people tell is called the Howling Pines, and it's far more unsettling than anything in the square. The Howling Pines legend starts with a group of teenagers on a dare. They'd heard stories. Someone saw mysterious lights, someone else heard ghostly voices, but no one believed them. To prove the legends fake, they decided to spend one night in the forest. As they walked in, their flashlights barely cut through the thick fog that oozed across the uneven ground. Suddenly, one girl joked, "Bet the trees sing lullabies out here." Nervous laughter bubbled up, but you could tell no one was really at ease. Not long after setting up camp, they heard it, just above the sound of insects and cracking twigs, a humming noise, low and barely there. At first, the group thought it was the wind winding through the branches. But the humming grew louder and started to sound like a real melody, though one none of them recognized. The music was jagged and off, jumping between high shivery notes and low growls, like a broken music box spinning too fast. Camera work moves tight onto their faces now, eyes wide, hands clutching flashlights, breath fogging in the air. The editor would probably cut to a close-up of goosebumps on one kid's arm, and maybe a trembling hand shoving more sticks into an already roaring campfire. The forest around them seemed to lean in, and even the animals, usually chattering by night, went silent. Only the strange music played, somewhere just out of sight. Let's pump up the music cues right here. Imagine harsh, scraping sounds layered over the melody, like a rusty gate swinging open then slamming shut. Suddenly there's a crescendo, a sharp, unnatural screech, followed by a deep bass thump that shakes the air. The fire flickers higher, casting wild shadows across the trees, making the group huddle together and scan the darkness with more panic than before. Someone whispers, "Did you see that?" But no one answers. This is where the legend turns. The music, once a faint background, now takes center stage. With every measure, the unease grows. Notes keep clashing, never resolving into anything pretty or safe. It gets under your skin in a way you can't shake. Some of the kids start nervously laughing, trying to pretend they're not scared, but their voices are tight, strained. One kid, the self-proclaimed skeptic, starts cracking jokes, but you can hear a quiver in his voice. Another buries her face in her jacket to hide tears. Small gestures, clenched fists, shifting eyes, show the anxiety spreading. Let's add a moment of vivid detail. Picture the firelight flickering in their wide eyes, making their faces look hollow and ghostly. The wind picks up, carrying the melody in unpredictable bursts, causing everyone to jerk their heads in different directions, hoping to spot the source. One girl whispers, her voice barely louder than the wind, "Don't you feel like something's watching us?" Her words hang in the air, heavier than the fog, and for a second, even the bravest kid can't meet her gaze. As the night wears on, the music seems to chase them, weaving from tree to tree. One boy shines his flashlight frantically between twisted trunks, catching glimpses of movement that might be a raccoon or maybe something else entirely. The group forms a tight circle, backs pressed together, eyes frantic. It's that kind of fear that makes your skin itch and your stomach twist. As the story escalates, so does the intensity of the music. A villain can only be so scary without a soundtrack. The same is true for the haunted woods. Here, each musical jolt seems to trigger another wave of panic. Every time the music swells, someone jumps or gasps. One boy starts pacing in circles, muttering, "It's just noise. It's just noise." Like a mantra. The tension spreads. Nobody trusts their own senses anymore. A falling branch makes half the group scream. Then, silence. The music cuts to pitch black. Now the only sounds are their frightened breaths and an occasional stifled sob. Why does music play such a powerful role here? Our brains are wired to fear the unknown. Discordant sounds signal that something isn't right. Your ears know danger is near, even before your mind registers it. That's why dissonance in music, especially when paired with a scary story, makes your heart race. The Howling Pines legend uses this perfectly. Without the warped melody, it's a campfire tale about being lost in the woods. With that music, it's a memory nobody ever wants to relive. Let's take you inside the group's minds for a second. They start rationalizing. Maybe the melody's coming from a hidden speaker. Maybe another friend is playing a prank. But every theory falls apart. There's no one else in those woods, and the sound seems to move from tree to tree, as if the forest itself is humming. Doubt sets in. Imaginations run wild. To drive the point home, think about that feeling you get in a haunted house attraction. The way the fake fog curls around your feet. The uneasy silence before a sudden scream. It's not just what you see, but the background hum, the eerie chord, the sudden drop into silence that makes your heart skip. That same magic, or maybe curse, happens here in the Howling Pines. The combination of story and sound creates a moment you never forget. Out in the real world, studies show that unsettling music can increase adrenaline and make your skin tingle. If you're sitting in a dark room listening to a scary soundtrack, you'll start looking over your shoulder, even if you know you're alone. The fear isn't just in the story, it's in the sound. That's why urban legends told with the right music get retold and remembered way more than those told in silence. The audience's reaction during the telling of the Howling Pines is just as much a part of the story as the melody. Whispered warnings bounce around. Don't move. Was that a shadow? Tight camera work shows pale faces, eyes darting from friend to friend. Goosebumps, gripped hands. Every flash of movement in the dark brings another round of fright. At one point, the storyteller's voice drops almost to a whisper. Everyone leans in, drawn by the tension. The music softens, then pulses, louder, sharper, until it breaks into a screech. You'd swear the backyard or living room, wherever you're hearing this tale, gets a degree colder. Afterward, the legend sticks with people differently than the first. The fear is rawer, more physical. For weeks, the teenagers avoid the woods, and whenever they hear a strange humming, be it from a neighbor's lawnmower or a distant car stereo, the memory of their night in the forest rushes back, leaving chills and a racing heart. Here's another layer. Imagine a kid in the audience back in the village, clutching a blanket and swallowing hard as the storyteller finishes the tale. The wide-eyed silence afterward says it all. Everyone's lost in their own thoughts, wondering, could that happen to us? Even the bravest adults seem just a little rattled, shuffling in their seats or glancing toward the nearest tree line. This is the power of a great scary story. It plants a seed of doubt, a sense that maybe, just maybe, the forest holds secrets we're not meant to hear. If you ever want to tell your own scary story, pay attention to the environment and music you use. Even a faint background sound, like wind whistling through a half-open window, can keep listeners on edge. Layer in little jump scares, a sudden key change or unexpected silence to up the tension. Shift to tighter camera angles, spotlighting anxious faces, or dim the lights so that every shadow looks like it could hide something awful. So what happened to the teens in the Howling Pines? Did they escape unscathed, or did the melody follow them home? And what was the source of that unearthly music anyway? The question is, why does the music linger long after the echo fades? The next story is even more chilling, pushing fear to its absolute limit. It's one thing to be haunted by strange melodies or the wind through the trees, but it's something else entirely when terror comes from the shadows inside your own home. This next legend is the one people talk about in hushed tones, words barely above a whisper. They call it the candle in the mirror, and it's the kind of story you never forget after you've heard it, especially with the eerie music that goes hand in hand with every telling. The story always begins with a dare. A group of friends, egged on by rumors at school, agree to test the legend at midnight. They sneak into one friend's house while the parents are away, closing every curtain and turning off every light. The only thing breaking the darkness is a single candle, its flame flickering and stretching shadows across the walls. Somebody sets down an old, ornate mirror in the center of the room, glass cloudy, frame covered in odd scratches. The silence is thick, but then someone turns on a phone and starts playing a slow, pulsing tune. It's a melody that sounds both familiar and totally wrong, like a lullaby stretched and warped until it barely makes sense. Here, music becomes more than a background character. It's almost the villain. As the group takes turns staring into the mirror by candlelight, the haunting tune grows louder, layered with unsettling whispers and the sudden clang of distant bells. The storyteller's voice is soft, but the music's volume creeps up, masking the sound of shaky breaths. Every child's reflection dances in the dying light, faces looking slightly off. Some swear the reflections blink a moment too late. Others see dark shapes flicker behind them. Is it just nerves? Or is something waiting inside the glass? Cut to tight shots, fingers gripping the edge of the mirror, candle wax dripping onto the floor, wide eyes locked on the shifting candlelight. The music shifts again, a burst of static, then a jarring note that feels like ice water down your back. Goosebumps rise. Someone gasps as a shadow moves across the wall. A different friend drops the candle, plunging the room into almost total darkness. But the music doesn't stop. It gets sharper, twisted, echoing off the walls, as if something invisible is walking among them. And listen to what the kids say after the lights come back on. Some stammer, "I swear that wasn't my face in the mirror," while another insists, "Did you hear that voice in the music? It said my name, I'm sure of it." This isn't just one person's fear. It spreads, feeding off each shaky retelling. One time in a neighborhood just a few towns over, a group of kids tried the dare, and later at school, none of them would look in a mirror for days. They'd cover bathroom mirrors with paper towels, telling their teachers it was just for fun, but everyone knew better. Even one student, Tommy, admitted on the bus ride home, "I keep hearing that tune in my ears at night. I can't sleep." This legend is the perfect recipe for fear because it plays on the oldest terrors: being alone, being watched, and not being able to trust what you see. The candlelight flickers, and suddenly the mirror's surface seems to ripple. The music, too, grows frantic, a screech of strings, then silence so sudden it leaves ears ringing. In that moment, the air feels thick, almost syrupy. Most people fill the silence with nervous giggles or force themselves to break eye contact with the mirror. But the bravest hold out, waiting to see if the legend's supposed ghost will appear behind them. And don't underestimate the power of just being together, yet feeling completely isolated. When you're in a group, you expect comfort, but this setup leaves everyone stranded in their own fears. A hush falls, interrupted only by the sound of someone's breath quivering or the slow drip of wax hitting the floor. The visuals push it further. Picture the candlelight making monstrous shadows on the walls, the mirror reflecting not just faces but something darker and less defined, like a smudge moving in the background. Even the familiar becomes strange, the color of paint on the wall, the pattern on the rug. Everything looks a shade off when fear has taken over. Why does this one hit so hard? Because it's built on the unknown. Our brains are wired to fill in the blanks, especially when all our senses are screaming that something isn't right. The blend of shadowy visuals and haunting sounds triggers a primal fear. Something could be lurking just out of sight, and music that grows and stops at the wrong times convinces us there's really something there. Even after the night ends and the group races to turn on all the house lights, the story sticks with them. For days, mirrors seem darker and more mysterious. A warped reflection or shadow at the edge of vision is enough to conjure the entire legend back, all with the mere hint of eerie music. Psychologists call this kind of fear the fear of the unknown. When you can't see or name what's scaring you, the anxiety just festers. And when that anxiety is paired with unsettling music and dim lighting, the effect multiplies. Even silence, especially after a sudden loud note, can be terrifying. Our minds rush to fill the silence with imagined threats. Was something really there? Or did I just think I saw it? That cycle of doubt is what makes this story so potent. The music in these tales is designed to keep you guessing. It never lets you find solid ground. The visuals are just as important. Candlelight makes the room seem alive, shadows dancing like ghosts with each flicker. Every little creak in the floor or tap at the window could be a sign. Tight camera angles focus on trembling faces, darting eyes, and shivering lips. In editing, crossfading the music from gentle hum to sudden burst amplifies that sense of danger waiting just out of sight. Try imagining yourself in that living room, candle flickering, tracks of odd music playing, and all your friends slowly losing their nerves. The longer the silence, the louder your own thoughts become. Did you move? Or was that shadow not yours? Was that whisper just a breeze? Or a voice behind your ear? With no way to know, fear takes over. Even without seeing a ghost, the impact lingers for weeks or longer. Folks share the tale for generations, each person adding their own twist. Maybe someone swears they saw a face, or that a hand reached out from the glass. The music always plays a role. Sometimes it's an old nursery rhyme, sometimes it's screeching static, but it always signals danger. Now, imagine this. Years later, one of the kids who played the dare, now a teenager, tells the story at a party. Suddenly, the lights flicker and someone's phone, completely by accident, starts playing that same odd lullaby from the legend. The whole room falls silent, and for just a second, every single person feels the chill of a forgotten fear skating up their spine. Even when it ends, the laughter sounds nervous, forced, because everyone remembers a time they stared into a mirror and hoped nothing stared back. This legend burns itself into memory. Years later, survivors of the dare say they can't stand the sound of old music boxes, or they cover mirrors before bed. One or two even claim the music finds them in dreams, always pulling them back to the moment of the dare, the flickering candle, and the terror of the unknown. So why does this legend last? Because it takes the most basic childhood fears and amplifies them, trapping you in an endless loop of doubt. The power of music, the shifting shadows, and the fear that something is waiting just out of sight work together in perfect harmony, or perfect horror. Every sense is engaged. Music makes you feel before you even know why. Shadows make you jump before you realize you're afraid. And the story lingers, haunting you just as much as the legend itself. And then everything changed. There's more to explore. What is it about the actual music we hear that pulls these fears out of us and buries them deep inside our minds? The answers lie in how our brains react to every note, every silence, and every scream. So now that you've heard 3 unforgettable legends, let's pull back the curtain and look at why scary music, and the right sounds in general, have such a powerful effect on the mind. If you've ever wondered why some tunes make your neck prickle or your stomach clench, it's all about how our brains are wired. Let's take a deep dive into the secrets of scary sound. It starts with something called dissonance. In simple terms, dissonance means notes or sounds that don't really go well together. When you hear 2 notes that clash, your brain instantly feels uncomfortable. Scientists have found that this triggers a mini alarm system inside you, telling your body that something isn't safe. Minor keys, which sound sad or spooky, do the same thing. They signal that things aren't right, even before you realize what's making you uneasy. Most experts agree this goes way, way back in human history. Imagine a thunderstorm rolling in, a sudden crack of thunder, wind howling in all directions, trees creaking. Nature is full of dissonant, unpredictable sounds. So our ancient ancestors learned to perk up when they heard something jarring. Next time a scary soundtrack sends chills down your spine, remember, your body's just doing what it's always done, keeping you safe in a world of unexpected noises. This isn't just theory, it's proven in some of the most famous scary scenes in movie history. Think about the Jaws theme, 2 simple notes played over and over, slowly getting louder and faster. Even if you took away the sight of the shark, just hearing that music makes your heart pound. It tells you danger is coming. Steven Spielberg once said people told him they were more frightened of the music than the shark itself. The same is true in Psycho, when the shrieking strings signal something terrible is about to happen. Bernard Herrmann, who composed that music, used real horsehair bows scraping across violins to mimic screaming. Next time you hear that classic re, imagine being in the recording studio as musicians dragged bows across the strings, building that wave of panic just to get you squirming in your seat. And it's not just the classics. Think of more recent movies, like Stranger Things. The suspenseful, 80s-inspired synth music instantly lets you know something supernatural is coming. If you've watched it with friends, you've probably seen someone squeeze a pillow or gasp even before a monster shows up, just because the music is buzzing in the background. It's proof. Even when you know it's only a show, your brain can't help but react. These sound tricks aren't random. Directors and composers use them to make sure you're nervous before anything scary even happens on screen. It's a little like a magician showing you the hat before pulling out the rabbit. When you pair these soundtracks with urban legends, the result is stories that stick with people far longer than they would on their own. Remember the haunted melody? The twisted violin, the crescendo, the off-key lullaby? Those weren't just details. They were built to make you feel anxious and jumpy. Each musical choice plants seeds of fear. Let's zoom in even further. When you hear unsettling music, your brain releases adrenaline, speeding up your heart and making your senses sharper. It's an ancient defense system, useful when you actually needed to run from danger. Now, it just means that stories told with the right sound get stuck in your head and under your skin for years. You're not alone. Scientists have actually run experiments where they measure people's heart rates and even sweat levels while listening to different kinds of music. Unsettling soundtracks always spike the results, even if listeners don't realize it. It's not just about the music, though. Sometimes the most frightening moments happen in total silence. Ever notice how movies stop the music right before the scariest jump? That's on purpose. When a soundtrack goes suddenly quiet, your brain goes into extra alert mode. You start imagining what's coming next, and your mind usually invents something even scarier than what appears. Silence acts like blank space, another kind of tension. It's like standing outside a dark room and not knowing what's inside. The mystery gets under your skin. Let's do a demonstration. Try this at home. Tell a spooky story with no music at all. Maybe folks laugh a little. Now add in slow, creeping background music, a sudden bang, or a weird, distorted lullaby. Watch how everyone's body language changes. The room gets tense, people shift in their seats, and some glance over their shoulders. That's the invisible power of sound design. You might hear someone even whisper, "Turn it off. I can't take it." Not because of the words, but the way the sound twists their nerves. You don't have to be a Hollywood composer to use this trick. If you want to make a scary podcast or short film, start with minor keys, notes that sound sad or off, and use instruments like violins or synthesizers for a sense of dread. Mix in real sounds, doors creaking, wind howling, footsteps echoing down a hallway. Play back your story and try different versions. One with lots of music, one with just a few well-placed sound effects, and one with a sudden pause. You'll notice that sometimes, silence itself is the scariest thing of all. Try layering in extra noises, a faraway drip, maybe static from an old radio, to see how each version changes the mood. And remember, even your own voice can ramp things up. Try whispering instead of talking, letting your voice tremble as you reach a scary part. You'll see goosebumps pop up. Guaranteed. Now, think back to the legends from earlier. Why did those stories spread so quickly? Part of it is the music. Eerie tunes and spine-chilling sound effects make people more likely to remember a tale, pass it on, or warn others. Folks who survived the Howling Pines or the candle in the mirror didn't just tell friends about creepy noises. They actually hummed the tune, described the way the sounds made their hair stand up, and shuddered at the memory. You might even remember the way your friend's voice quivered, or how your own hands felt icy cold. Those little moments, all shaped by sound, stick with us. Think about classic urban legends, too. The tale of Bloody Mary? People everywhere have their own eerie versions of the chant, and it's the way that chant echoes in a dark bathroom that makes your heart race. Or the ghostly whistling from the Whistler's Lane. Whole towns claim they've heard that same tune drifting on the night breeze. It's not just the story. It's the feeling the sounds create that lingers around campfires or echo across playgrounds. Music becomes a character in scary stories because it's so easy to share and so hard to forget. Urban legends that use vivid sound are the ones people tell in hushed voices, long after the night is over. Imagine kids at a slumber party daring each other to play a backwards lullaby, or grown-ups refusing to go near a certain old piano because of the rumors it can summon ghosts. These aren't just tales, they're rituals, rules, and warnings, all wrapped up in a melody. Ever notice how when someone describes a haunting memory, they don't just talk about what they saw, they almost always mention the sounds? Maybe it's a specific tune, the echoing of footsteps, or dead silence. Scary music not only paints a scene, but attaches emotions to it. That's why some people can't hear certain songs without immediately thinking of the legend that came with it. Even if you didn't believe the story, music made you feel like you could. And don't forget, the biggest scares usually come when you least expect them. Sound designers love to trick us, using sudden shifts or dropping all sound. Imagine listening to a story with consistent creepy music, then it all vanishes, leaving just your heartbeat and distant wind. That missing sound makes us desperate, nervous, jumpy. That's when fear hits hardest. So next time you tell a spooky story or watch a scary movie, pay close attention to the music. Notice how it twists your emotions, speeds up your pulse, and gets stuck in your mind. The best legends aren't just about what you see, they're about what you hear. The tools to scare your friends or yourself are hiding in your playlist, your kitchen, even your own voice. But that leads us to the real question. Why do we keep coming back for more? Why does hearing a spooky tune or ghostly legend make us want to listen again, even as we cover our ears? The answer might be even stranger than the legends themselves. So, let's unravel the secret next. Let's bring it all together. We've journeyed through 3 chilling urban legends, each made even scarier by the power of music. From the foggy village square and the stranger's haunted melody, to the shivering teens caught in the grips of the Howling Pines, and finally the candlelit nightmare of the candle in the mirror. Every step was about more than just the story. It was about what those soundtracks made us feel, how they crawled under our skin and pulled us in deeper. Think about the way the haunted melody twisted the mood of an ordinary night. Without that violin's strange song, the legend might have faded into just another tale told around a fire. But because of the music, it's remembered for generations. That trembling note at midnight, the echo that didn't seem to stop. It's those details that keep people from ever walking through the square after dark. And then there's the Howling Pines. Without the discordant humming moving through the trees, would anyone be scared of a bunch of old woods on the edge of town? Probably not. But with each shiver-inducing song, the group's fear became almost real. They jumped at every shadow, imagined monsters in every gust of wind, and weeks later, the tiniest sound could bring all those fears rushing right back. Then we stepped inside, turned off the lights, and stared down the legend of the candle in the mirror. This story became a nightmare, not just because of what people swore they saw, but because of what they heard, and what they imagined after the music dropped out or surged up unexpectedly. The wrong note at the right time. A sudden silence after a whisper. Candlelight flickering in time with a distorted melody. These are the things that stick in our minds the longest. Scary music works in a special way. It sneaks beneath logic and reason to reach the oldest, deepest part of our brains, the part that jumps at rustling leaves or a creaking door in the next room. Music doesn't just create suspense and dread, it heightens every emotion, making stories more memorable and moments more intense. The music shapes the legend, not just as background noise, but as a force that makes us feel what the characters felt: anxious, thrilled, completely hooked. Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine after hearing a spooky song? Or did you start glancing behind you after someone told you a ghost story with a creepy soundtrack? If so, you're not alone. Drop your spookiest encounters, favorite legends, or weirdest experiences with scary music in the comments. Did a certain tune haunt your dreams? Was there a legend that always gave you goosebumps? Your story might help someone else sleep with the lights on. Music keeps these legends alive. It's more than memories. It's how we pass down warnings and share things that can't always be explained. The next time you listen to a scary story, let the music guide you deeper. Notice how every twist in the tale has a matching twist in the sound. See how your nerves tingle when the melody gets sharp or a sudden silence falls. And maybe you even catch yourself humming a creepy tune hours later, the echo following you around your house. And remember, this is just the beginning. Next time, we'll take a fresh look at urban legends from around the world. Some of them use music in even stranger, more surprising ways. Others play with local instruments or use noises from places you'd least expect. We'll break down what makes those stories so powerful and maybe, just maybe, help you unlock the secret to telling a ghost story that nobody ever forgets. So as you turn out the lights tonight and maybe hear a distant melody on the wind, ask yourself, what makes you believe? Is it the story, or is it the music behind it? Maybe that's what keeps us coming back for more, chasing chills, sharing legends, and always listening for the next haunted tune.